Yo guys, I got my rig. I call it Megalodon. Today we've got one of the more unusual smartphones. There's nothing flashy about this phone. It feels durable out the box. I don't think anybody's even gonna think about putting a case on it. In recent memory, this year, any year, yeah, you could send a PS5 signal into, whoa. I've looked at Sony smartphones in the past, and I've been pleasantly surprised. They've put an emphasis on photography, on camera features, video features, sort of pulled from their camera expertise, put it into their phones. Complex, complicated. I'm glad that it exists though, and I'm glad that Sony's taking a different approach only because we have so many great options already at just the kind of flagship premium thing, glass and polish and fingerprints and fancy and luxury. So I've had a positive experience with the previous generation, Xperia 1, Xperia 5, but today they took things to a completely different level, but it's a complicated conversation. All right, you have this smartphone. Do I need a new smartphone? The smartphone's $2,500. They launched a somewhat controversial product. I mean, it's hard to call it controversial because it's like, what's the controversy? We're talking about the price of the device and what it does and who it's for. It's the Xperia Pro. All right, and they put Pro in the name because it's intended for pros. Unlike everybody else who puts the Pro there because it just sounds good, it's more like a prosumer type. Sony actually expects for professionals to use this setup. Not just the phone, but the phone with the camera attachment. They want to get that dude from the NFL. They want to be inside of a variety of productions via smartphone for easier streaming and for easier sharing of files more quickly by integrating the smartphone into the production environment. Now, for a lot of you, you're just saying, well, I just see a premium price tag, Lou. A lot of you are saying, is that a $2,500 smartphone, Lou? Does that have a Snapdragon 865 in it, Lou? And that's a whole different area of the market. And for those people, you need to recognize that this isn't necessarily targeted at you. It's still gonna perform, it's still gonna be nice, even as a phone without the camera being attached to it. It's still got some very unique features inside of the camera application and video application. Totally professional stuff, and it has a rugged body. Why don't we just, maybe I should just unbox the thing? Okay. Actually, real quick, let's just look at the website. All right, $24.99, making it one of the most expensive smartphones I've ever featured here on the show. This is the key feature, HDMI connectivity. This is what allows you to use this as a monitor for, well, it doesn't even have to be a Sony camera. There's gonna be some advanced functionality there, but as an external monitor. Places like this, YouTube channels and such, we use these things. These things are used here. Not often seen in the light of day by you on the other end of the lens, but back behind it, I've been using these for years. HDMI connectivity into the phone, it can do some of what that thing previously did, and those are expensive too. Those are like 2Gs too. Also got 5G millimeter wave in here, and that's another ambition. This is gonna be key for wirelessly transmitting a high quality, high resolution video. Low dielectric constant material optimizes signal strength, my goodness. 6.5 inch 21:9 cinema wide. So this was another thing I noticed in the previous model. You have this really slender design, but still a big display, so it's a little bit taller. Now you can't find all that much content that's gonna fit in there perfectly that you didn't shoot yourself, but you get a one-handed functionality, a comfort when holding it with one hand that you don't get out of, obviously, wider form factor devices. Snapdragon 865 I mentioned previously, it is water resistant IP6568, and it has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. So those are your key specifications. But if you look at this whole package right here, and we actually have all this stuff, prepare yourself for a comprehensive video. We have many of the Sony things. This is the hot new A1 camera. I'll do the rig thing for you. It's not gonna be ultra comprehensive, but I'll show you sort of roughly what an entire package can look like for your personal YouTube ambitions, which they may very well be there. In a professional environment fast and easy file transfers straight from the photograph on the field and into the smartphone, prepared for sharing because of all the connectivity built in. The live broadcasting thing is quite interesting to me. Let's hop into the box, why don't we? Also has micro SD card expansion. Okay, so here it is. Very simple unboxing experience, almost like a professional item. This thing is a tank. Oh, I like that. I like the tank aspect to it. Kind of reminds me of some of those rugged phones of past. The texture here, like a premium camera, has a little bit of grit and grip to it. It is not slick, and it does not attract fingerprints. It's there, I promise. There's a texture on there. You can see the camera module in this location. It's all embedded, so no big giant camera hump. One of the benefits of a slightly fatter phone. Look at the Pro designation right there in gold, Xperia PRO. Another unusual characteristic of not just this phone, but also the Xperia One. You have your fingerprint scanner. It's baked into your power switch on the side of the phone where your thumb goes. So it's a single-handed kind of unlock like this. You don't have to go down to the display. And in my time I spent with the Xperia One, the last version of it, I kind of found that to be perfectly fine and convenient. So no problem there. You also have some dedicated buttons over here, dedicated shutter button to make you feel like a real professional as you pop off that photo instead of touching some digital indication of the shutter release. Like, you feel like bang. And this is of course just using the phone without any kind of camera attachment. Something I noticed over here on the side as well is that one of the buttons here is indented purposely, and then the other one next to it has a texture, so you can quickly determine the difference between the two without seeing them. You know which is which. I like that. You've also got volume rocker over on this side here, and another unique thing to the Sony lineup is the fact that the SIM card tray does not require a SIM card tool. It pops out super easily and quickly, which is not just nice for SIM cards, but it's also nice for the expandable storage, since we have micro SD on there. If you were constantly subbing out or swapping out or transferring files from micro SD, then the need to look for a SIM tool, it would be a little bit frustrating. In this case, it's just your fingernail and it pops out, and you still have the IP rating on there, which is nice. Now, the magical port is down here on the bottom, this HDMI port, which is what's different about it's an HDMI input, not output. So this is a display. You can send an HDMI signal into your phone to use it as a screen. Obviously, the application of sending a camera to use this as a monitor is what they are advertising, but could you not send, I mean, you could send anything there, could you not? You could send a PS5 signal into, whoa. I'm not sure why you would want to, but I presume it would be possible. You have your USB Type-C connector for charging it up, and there's a little cover here on the display. So this is not gonna win any awards for the, having the most aggressive screen to body ratio. There is a forehead and a chin on there, and a camera module front facing in that location. Also in the package, a little bit of paperwork, 20-watt charge brick, and a headset is included, which is a mini jack headset. But oh yes, I almost didn't notice. You still have an analog audio output, so you can plug in your headset. That's kind of becoming a professional feature in 2021. You don't see it very frequently, but that could be useful for monitoring in the professional environment, content creation. USB Type-C cable is the last item over there. So that wraps up your unboxing experience. Sony doesn't do much to the skin. They keep it pretty simple, which I appreciate. You'll see it is basically unadulterated Android, which is really nice for me. I've always been a fan of the Pixel devices, Nexus devices before that. I like a clean Android experience in a lot of cases, and so Sony doesn't mess with it too much. Yeah, it's 4K HDR OLED. That's on a 6.5-inch display. So this is a crazy number of pixels, which also contributes to the price point. Now, I know that you could just go get the Xperia One and say to yourself, wait a sec, I had the 4K display over there, and it wasn't $2,500. Absolutely. But again, once it becomes a monitor and you start looking at portable 4K monitors, for your camera equipment, again, that's YouTube life I'm talking about, then you start to see some pretty significant price tags associated with pocketable 4K resolution for monitoring. Now, on the smartphone side of it, it's just kind of nice to have 4K. I mean, you could hold it in, this distance from your eyes and still have, I mean, you can't spot any pixels in there. It is some seriously tight pixel density, 6.5 inch. I don't know if it's the only 4K display, but it's one of the only ones that's popped up over here. It does mean, however, you don't get the exotic refresh rate on there. So you got a 60 hertz display. Oh, you know what? It has a lot of RAM. 12 gigabytes of RAM. I think that's an upgrade. 512 gigs of internal storage. So I suppose that's where they're getting their Pro aspect as well, as far as the spec sheet is concerned. And because you have that micro SD card slot, that opens you up to another terabyte of storage potentially as well. Now, if you look at your homepage here, it's all about content creation. You have hotspot and tethering, endurance mode, external monitor mode, transfer and tagging, imaging edge mobile. You have Photo Pro and Cinema Pro. These are separate to the default Android camera applications, which are still there if you want to take a quick photo. This is basically the Android style camera app. But really the magic here happens when you launch into Photo Pro or the Video Pro mode. And it's like, I mean, it's a whole manual dream here for anyone who wants to dive deeper into the photography realm and access features that were previously only accessible to dedicated cameras now come to life on the smartphone in the form of the Xperia Pro. Like, look at this thing. Look at this layout with your exposure over here. I mean, you like autofocus, continuous autofocus. There's the eye tracking autofocus that Sony is so famous for on all the cameras that every single YouTuber uses. It's in here. It's in the phone. And so whether you want to just use the device itself as the capture device as opposed to a dedicated camera working in conjunction with the thing, it still packs a lot of the stuff you're looking for in a more professional grade camera into a smartphone form factor. Now, if I log out of here and go into the Cinema Pro, it's the same story, and you're going to see all kinds of exciting stuff in here. Picture profiles that are flat so you can color grade them afterwards. The super wide aspect ratio, frame rates that might give you a more sort of filmic look if that's what you're going for, 23.98. Obviously the variety of lens options as well, from 16mm f2.2 all the way up to 70mm f2.4. Big apertures all the way along there. And this is the cool part with the look. We're real pros on this show. If I switch between looks, like that's Venice CS. So you're talking about a sort of pro color setup where you're going to get into your post-production and go in there and enhance the color as you see fit. If you're not in the production mindset, this may not all be all that appealing to you. But if you did pick this phone up, it could be a jump-off point for playing around with more professional settings that, as far as smartphones are concerned, usually require some extra software or something to unlock anything close to this, and you're still probably not going to end up here. Now, if you don't want to do post-production or you're not looking for those exotic picture profiles, you can, of course, once again, like I said previously, just launch into the stock application, and then you can see your usual saturated variety of colors there so that you can go straight to sharing and you don't need to run any color correction or color grading on it. So in the photo mode here, that is your standard lens. I snap a photo there. Here is your wide, and it does appear to have some lens correction in there by default. We have the wide angle. Also the 70mm zoom, which appears to not have the greatest focusing distance. You have to be a fair, but it's, I mean, that's a very true to life representation. Wow. Look at that. It's almost bang on, even in the stock camera app. So fancy and fun stuff going on. I don't even know. Maybe Sony expects that people who are in the market for a Sony camera end up picking up the phone because they're already such a fan of the camera. They're like, you know what? I'm constantly on this thing. I want a phone that complements that. And this is another thing you just don't see that frequently as a person watching content on YouTube. But if you converse with content creators, it's everybody has one of these cameras to begin with. And so Sony kind of makes a play and says, you know what, we're not Samsung, we're not Apple, we're not selling a tremendous number of smartphones, but when it comes to cameras, we're kind of up here right now. So they're like, maybe we're a camera first company and the smartphone is complementary to that. Maybe that's an angle and approach we take, and we go lower volume, higher margin, and position this device at $24.99. It's quite possible. All right, so other items that have been included from Sony for this unboxing experience. The camera is a whole nother ridiculous story of resolutions and frame rates. This thing shoots 8K. We tested it to shoot 8K continuous. I want to switch all the cameras to this camera. Like, Sony's angle and attack seems like it's focusing on me directly and people who live a lifestyle like this. And I guess the market is growing for content creators, and therefore maybe there's more potential buyers than you would have immediately imagined. So this is a cage that you can install on the outside of the camera, and that's going to allow you to rig up all kinds of accessories. It just gives you some more flexibility. And this is the actual cage portion over here. Ooh, a cable clamp. And look at this. Wow. That's cool. Tons of mounting points, a lot of flexibility. Certainly a professional type of application. And last up is this monster, the A1. What did I say? Continuous 8K recording at 30 frames, 4K up to 120 internal. You know, you've heard these things from other manufacturers overheating. I don't know. It's a marvel. I don't know how they do it. I've been using Sony cameras for a long time. It felt like 4K was kind of where we were. But when it comes to the package they put together, with the form factor, this new resolution, and the autofocus stuff. And like, I got like this camera right over here. Like, look at this. That's autofocus. See what I'm saying? This is a 20 mil from Sony, but you can see. How about the cards? Let's try this. Boom. It's a tough process to figure this out, but I mean, when it comes to faces, it's even better with the eye tracking and such. They're doing some magic at high resolutions, which that stuff is hard to find. The monitor on the back, I heard some people talking, saying they wish that it was a flippy flappy, like it flipped all the way around. Not such a big deal in our particular workflow over here, so I'm okay with that. What I do like, obviously, is the full-size HDMI port over here. It's a robust connector compared to the mini one, which, funny enough, that's what you use on the phone. A full-size HDMI port to be locked in for a more extended period of time. It's nice to have it on there. Type-C connector to power it up. You still have analog input and output for audio. What is this? Ooh, we have networking. And then there's a multi-output. I guess it's a multi-AV output. Oh, look at that. It says 8K steady shot. 8K steady shot inside. Dual card slots in there as well. Now, these must be expensive cards. The CF Express A, you can insert into either slot, but you can also insert SD cards. So it's a kind of multi-slot itself. Although in order to enable those high resolutions, I guess you're going to need this card to have enough throughput. This stuff is crazy fast, obviously. This wheel right here is different. The wheel around the wheel. This is a selector for the autofocus mode, AFS, AFC, DMF, and then manual focus. They kind of went wild on the EVF as well. This is some crazy resolution too. Is this turning into a camera video? 8Ks? So many Ks. All right, let's quickly finish off the unboxing. Camera unboxings are very comprehensive. So also inside the package, you have your charger. This is going to charge your battery. This is not a battery. This is a CF Express A/SD card reader, and it is robust. I love this thing. Oh my God, I want this on my desk. USB Type-C, and it's cold metal. There's also a Type-C cable to connect that. a blue bag for a C to C. So there's a C to A and a C to C. Power cable for the battery charger. Also in the package, you're going to have your battery. It is an NPFZ 100. If you have Sony products already, Sony cameras, you may own some of these. Why don't I put together a rig right now? Wow, that thread feels so satisfying. This is how I wear my hat when I'm rigging. Whenever I'm rigging. Yo guys, I got my rig. I call it Megalodon. What lens should I put on here? Not enough light. Damn. Oof. 2 times magnifier. Wow. I mean, it's a cool rig. She's a cool rig. My goodness, it is a nice monitor. It is, I've got a macro lens on there right now, and there's just no way I could simulate this exact experience on the tiny little display, especially when you add smartphone-like responsiveness for zooming. Like, I mean, you got the pinch and everything else. Now, I know that you have a kind of strange aspect ratio on here. You get these black bars on the side. Now, if you tap, it gives you some specifics like your battery life and what you're shooting in on the camera. And of course, some different settings over here. For me, where it really comes to life is when you tap in on it and kind of focus in on a specific area. Like, look at this macro lens. And then having a 4K resolution with the tight pixel density, it's a magical experience. I can light up, just like focus on one line of keys on that particular keyboard. So it's a capable monitor, but it's a complicated conversation. All right, you have this smartphone. Do I need a new smartphone? The smartphone's $2,500. This camera, the A1, again, you don't need to have this whole package. You have a capable smartphone. But if you wanted this, you're like $10,000 or whatever it is. You're shooting 8K. It's in one hand. I'm happy, but that's kind of what I do. That's kind of my interest. For other people, they might be saying, hey, if I'm going to spend $2,500 on a smartphone, I sure want that smartphone to be my main camera device. That's a lot of people in the world that they're not going to be picking up one of these things. So it's a complicated device. But that's kind of why I like it too, is because it can do all these different things and you kind of get to decide how you want to use it. You can plug it in. It is really, it's almost like a YouTuber phone, specifically for somebody who does these types of setups and could utilize this. But it's not without its drawbacks. If this is my phone, what about the notifications? What am I'm going to respond to a text while mounted to the phone? And what if I quickly need to have a private phone call on there? It's like I'm all of a sudden I know it's not the hugest deal in the world, but it's like, do I want my professional video equipment to be tied into my personal life in the way that a phone happens to be? But if I push this to the side, I'm just like, I kind of like a rugged utilitarian phone. I'm like, I kind of like some of the things Sony's doing, giving me 4K on a screen with this much density. Oh, I kind of like what they're doing, giving me the Cinema Pro features in the video app inside of the phone that's already there. Oh, I kind of like what they're doing, giving me 12 gigs of RAM and a 512 storage with expandable storage. I just got to use my fingernail. Oh, I kind of like what they do, giving me the dedicated button on the top so I can snap photos and feel like I got that thing even when I don't have that thing. So as you can see, complex, complicated. I'm glad that it exists though, and I'm glad that Sony's taking a different approach only because we have so many great options already at just the kind of flagship premium thing, glass and polish and fingerprints and fancy and luxury. They didn't go luxury. They went pro instead. There's nothing flashy about this phone. It feels durable out the box. I don't think anybody's even going to think about putting a case on it because of how robust and tank-like it feels. That doesn't mean it's going to be for everyone. I think most people will probably pick luxury over pro, even when it has pro in the name. You look at an iPhone with the shiny everywhere, everything's shiny, and the colors, and most pro equipment doesn't do that for you. A lot of luxury equipment does do that for you. Although you don't often refer to luxury items as equipment at all, now do you? It's a specific device for people like me, so I probably have more appreciation for it than you do. And even for me, it's going to be tough to justify this particular purchase because of how specific that use case is. I still might get better mileage out of a separate phone and a separate monitor, but there you have it. It is the most expensive phone Sony's probably ever put out, alongside the most expensive mirrorless camera they currently make. It's a magical combination if you can afford to pay the bill. But for strictly smartphone buyers who won't use that HDMI port, you're probably going to end up elsewhere unless this styling and that 4K display is speaking to you on a very deep level, which is also possible.